Inihahandog ng UPCMC Departamento ng Broadcast at ng Universidad ng Pilipinas, Diliman. Kasama ang Philippine Studies Association at DZUP. Ang pagdiriwang ng ika-100 taon ng broadcasting sa Pilipinas.
Where is our life? And I tell you,
Hindi pa rin natatapos ang pangamba ng ilang mga taga.
hindi pa rin natatapos.
You are choosing to come in at one of the worst times in the Philippines to be a journalist.
There's absolutely no reason for the reporter to keep quiet.
There are forces in society that have an interest in not exposing the truth.
Sa unang 2 episode ng mga panayam, ipinaliwanag ko na nabuo ang mga panayam noong mga buwan ng Marso hanggang Mayo taong 2021. Maglilimang taon na si Duterte bilang presidente sa panahong iyon at ikalawang taon ng COVID-19 pandemic. Isa sa mga kursong itinuro ko at ni Ivy Claudio sa panahong ito ang Broadcast Journalism 130 na may pamagat na Issues in Broadcast News and Public Affairs. Gaya ng nasabi ko na, lubhang napapanahon ang kurso dahil nakababahala hindi lamang ang mga balita, kundi maging ang pagbabalita sa panahon ng isang kontrobersyal na Pangulo na lalong naging komplikado dahil sa krisis pangkalusugang hatid ng pandemya. Upang marinig namin at ng aming mga estudyante ang mga karanasan ng mga journalist sa panahon ni Duterte, marami kaming in-interview ni Ivy. Marami na tayong narinig mula kina Maria Ressa at Howie Severino. Narito naman ang panayam kay Inday Espina-Verona. Ako po si Betsy Enriquez at narito ang mga panayam. Ang tema ng episode na ito ay mga karanasan ng mga journalist sa panahon ni Duterte. Ang ating panauhin, isang batikan at multi-awarded na mamamahayag, si Binibining Inday Espina-Verona. Si Binibining Verona ang kauna-unahang Pilipino na nagwagi ng Reporters Without Borders Global Prize for Independence. Isa siyang International Fellow ng John S. Knight Fellowships sa Stanford University, dating tagapangulo ng National Union of Journalists of the Philippines, Host ng Alab Analysis at Alter Media, isang alternative media na binubuo ng mga independent at progresibong media outfits, organizations at individual. Si Assistant Professor Ivy Claudio ang nag-interview kay Binibining Varona. Unang itinanong ni Ivy kung ano ang nararanasan ng mga journalist sa panahon ni Pangulong Duterte. Ang sagot, masikip na nga ang espasyo, lalo pang sumikip dahil ginamit ang pandemya bilang dahilan ng lalong paghihigpit.
Dumataing yung mga reporters na Malacanang lang dahil talagang na-constrict, no? Talagang naging manipis, no? Ang kanilang espasyo para talagang matanong, mausisa ang Pangulong Duterte sa mga kanyang sinasabi, sa kanyang aksyon, sa mga polisiyang binababa niya. No? Kung nakikita naman natin, is napakalawak at napaka-tight ng bubble, no? na nasa palibot, no, ni Pangulong Duterte. Syempre, ang sinasabi ay ito ang dahilan ay ang nais nilang maproteksyonan siya sa posibilidad ng infection sa COVID because the land's highest official. And yet at the same time, for a time, especially in 2020, nakita natin na kahit yung mga aides niya, no? Kahit yung mga DOH officials, IATF officials, lahat, no? Ang hirap, magkakaroon sila ng mga di umano forum, but these were very, very tightly scripted events. No? Hindi dahil Zoom or whatever man yung platform ang ginagamit, wala yung dating back and forth na nakakatayo, nakaka-follow up ang mga reporters. Mas minimal, no? I still remember one reporter complaining about the DOH dahil isinaksak sila for a time dun sa isang Viber group kung saan ang buong sambayanan ay kasabang nagtatanong sa kanila. So the questions got left, on the roadside, no? So parang ganun din sa mga kanya, nagiging selective dun sa questions na tinatanong. Or at one point, I remember last year, they were actually made to submit questions in advance and that ito ang mababasa. So, I think that the government, which has always tried to manage the news, used the pandemic as an excuse to further tighten, news management. No? So yan for the reporters especially covering the government. Meron paminsan-minsan sumasagot yung mga ibang mga officials but wala yung the free give and take and the free opportunities to constantly scrutinize government policies and actions. Medyo na-curtail yun.
Ngunit sa kabila ng paghihigpit, napaka-visible ng administrasyon sa media, lalo na sa online media.
Ang nangyayari ay ginagamit rin ng gobyerno ang kanilang social media platforms where basically, makikita natin captive audience tayo lahat eh. Kasi pag nagsalita si Duterte, wala. It goes out. However, the number of lies that he throws out, kahit ano pong fact-checking natin, 2 days after, 3 days after, a week after, the fact is when the president throws out lies, and he does, let's put that on record, kind of regularly, pinipick up agad to ng different social media networks nila. And it's very easy to see that people are given scripts so that these are shared whether by real people or by their artificial networks of bots, etc. So two-pronged yun. Habang ginigipit dito, pinapatakbo, pinapakarera ang tinatawag natin mga participants sa kanilang network of disinformation. It's better now, no? Better now. I can see that. Medyo nagluwag. Medyo nakikita mong nagtatanungan. Dati kasi talagang in advance eh. Tapos nakikinig lang yung mga reporters. Tapos gagawa na lang ng storya based on whatever they were rambling around, no? So hindi pwede mag-jump in at mag-point out, teka muna sir, bakit nyo sinasabi yan? Eh, yung sinabi nyo last week, iba. Wala nang gano'n. Wala nang ganong, and that's a very important part of a journalist's task, is to hold news sources accountable to what they're saying. Kapag hindi nagagawa yan, ang maling information ang kakalat. At talagang deliberate yan, nakikita mo eh. Saka naman nakakita ang presidente. Ito lang the narrative arc of Duterte's claim that that kasalanan ng West kung bakit na-delay yung mga vaccines, kung bakit Sinovac lang ang namamayagpag. Diba? Okay. So alam na natin ang Pfizer, alam na natin yan, kinaklaim nila na late, ganun. Pero nakita natin that even Teddy Boy Locsin, the DFA secretary at one point, talagang nagalit na, nagsabing the DOH was sitting on it, di ba? So ang dami-daming rason, di ba? EUA, and now we know that late din lahat nag-submit ang EUA, pati yung paborito nila Sinovac, and definitely Sinopharm, which was given to the PSG, which hasn't yet actually officially applied kasi wala pa silang mga dokumento sinasubmit. So, but see, pag sinabi mo ganyan, you blame the West. And then later, Duterte said, there was a time, nakakalimutan na ito si Duterte who said na, ayoko ng West. Ang bibili tayo ng vaccine sa China, sa Russia. You know, he said that very openly in one of these, and that parang pinapalabas kasalanan ng West. When all the while, we know that it was Duterte himself who was putting up stumbling blocks. And then, there was the question raw, kaya hindi napipirmahan dahil raw walang indemnification, nagpipilit ng mapirmahan yung waiver of indemnity, no? Ganon. So, yun ang official claim din. But then, and Duterte was railing, and yet they passed the law. Pwede naman pala na mag-law sila, ang tagal nilang pinahintay lahat. And yet that goes missing, no? Nawawala yan sa konteksto. Dahil nga, ang tendency ng 24/7 na news cycle, yung reporter, anong sasabihin ni Duterte? Labas! Sabi ni Duterte, ganito. Yung gano'n. Dati, halos kulang tayo, takot ang marami. Not takot, alam mo say, hindi takot, but we come from this Western model where we just take the news sources word for it and then put it out there and then think that if we correct him, it could be seen as opinionated, no? And syempre nga naman, mumurahin ka rin naman talaga dahil mahilig magmura si Duterte. Pero the truth is, ating obligasyon as journalists at kung ginagawa natin ang trabaho natin maayos, alam natin kapag may sinabi siya na, no, that's not right because he said a different thing. You know, if you're a diligent journalist, you will remember this. Maybe not the particular details of the specific day, but you will know that you had heard him say something else a few months ago. And it should just take one Google and you will see your story. And then you can put it right there and ask him outright. And diretso, wait a minute, sir. But 5 months ago, you said this. Hardly anybody really asked that before. Well, some of those who did, like Pia, were sidelined from Malacanang. Diba? So that, I think, was a major flaw last year, especially dun sa COVID kaguluhan. And even generally during the drug war situation, naghahabol tayo ng storya. But in the era of digital technology, We all have the tools in our fingertips to actually right there and then within the next hour, within the 30 minutes, or even within the breaking story, you can already point out the contradictions. Because that's what we do, we're loyal to the truth. And if there are things said and actions made that need to be pointed out, obligasyon natin mag-point out right and there and then that there's a glaring contradiction between what he's saying today and the policy that they laid down 2 weeks ago or a month ago.
Itinanong ni Ivy kung paano ire-report ng mga broadcast journalist ang mga kasinungalingang sinasabi ni Duterte at ng gobyerno niya.
I'm not saying that you shouldn't quote them. You know, if a person lies, it's good that the world knows that he's lying. And the only way we can show that he's lying is by first putting out the lie. But we don't chase after the lie 3 days after. We should right there and then show without actually calling him nagsisinungaling si Pangulong Duterte. We don't actually do that in our news stories. Right there and there, we should put out something that will let people know without having to editorialize that, teka muna, bakit ganyan? Ganito pala yung sinasabi niya. And we have broadcast has all the tapes and all the archives and all the digital, and we know that everybody now has great digital libraries. There's absolutely no reason not to do it. Ang nakikita ko lang sometimes is siguro exigency of time minsan kung nangangarag yung mga reporters, pero hindi rin eh. Because you know what? It takes only a few seconds. It takes half a minute to put context in there. It doesn't need to make it long. You just need to put it right there. Kung hindi agad mahanap yung tape, then the reporter, because the reporter is the best gauge, the reporter heard it. The reporter wrote that story. There's absolutely no reason for the reporter to keep quiet. The reporter should step in that story and say, but 2 weeks ago, Duterte said.
Simula nang umupo si Duterte, may mga self-proclaimed journalists, karaniwan mga bloggers, at sila ang nagsulong ng naratibo ni Duterte. Ipinaliwanag ni Binibining Varona ang naging epekto sa mga legitimate journalist at maging sa mga newsroom at kung bakit ganito ang estratehiya ng administrasyon.
They were trying to drive a wedge. No? Okay. Ang context is right from the start, even before Duterte had assumed office in Malacanang, he was already lashing out at the media. It was a deliberate strategy. Before they could seed lies, for their lies to succeed, they needed to destroy, to attack the credibility of the institution that could actually go head to head with their lies, which was why they started attacking the media. Even before lumobo yung kanilang network of disinformation. So we heard prostitutes, we heard everything, dilawan, bayaran, lahat-lahat na yan. Okay. Now, I've dealt with citizen journalism. So hindi ako ang kind of journalist who will say, citizens have no business reporting the news. No. Because here's the thing. We know for a fact in PNPM, and we've had what? In 1 year, we would train thousands, we would have like 180 workshops with 300 people each, or 200, 500 minsan, And I know for a fact that citizens want to know how to properly convey their stories. Because if they think that their platforms are a powerful tool to help them improve the lives of their grassroots community, they will definitely feel the need and want to learn how to report the facts properly. in a logical manner. At nakikita yan, ang dami, ang gaganda ng mga reports ng mga citizen journalists who actually manage to turn around big problems in the communities. Mga hospitals throwing waste around, everything from schools left unfinished, from ang dami-dami, from rescuing Filipinos trapped in the Middle East during wars and during Japan during disasters. They use that properly. And what Mo did was deliberately, and this was deliberate on the Duterte's administration part, seed the idea that because netizens were not professional journalists, they were not obligated to be accurate. They could play with the facts, that they should not be held to standards of communications, which is absolutely wrong. Because even if you work in whatever industry, if you fudge with the facts, you're going to be kicked out fast. You will never be able to solve problems if in the first place the basis, yung baseline na binibigay mo ay mali. Hindi mo masosolve ang problem kailanman. Pero cynically, yan ang kanilang pinedal. And that's when they tried to push yung idea na parang feeling nila, parang enlightened daw sila. No, citizens, we need to get them we need to get them to be involved in communications. And fine, there's a place for that, because you can have roundtables with citizens. Fine, walang problema dyan. But there's a problem there, because even if I am very much a netizen, aside from being a journalist, I know the difference. As a journalist, I collaborate with peers. I submit my stories for vetting by my companions, by my colleagues, and there is no reporter, not even an editor so good, that he or she does not need peer review. I've always believed na. Naiinis nga ako pag makikita ko, hindi niyo ba check yung pinadala ko? Bakit nandiyan pa rin yung typo ko? Hindi, yun gano'n. Yun ang journalism because it's not just gathering, it's processing by the reporter, and processing includes the desk, the editor, and the finalizing of the product before it gets disseminated. That's what journalism is. That's the main difference. Kaya sabi ng fake news, nagkakamali kami, pero hindi yan fake news kasi nakailang layers of silip na sa isang kwento. And in broadcast, you can see that. Right down the wire, naghahabol. Tatayo na lang, magsa-stand upper na lang, mag-video na lang, naghahabolan pa ng question. Mali yung context dyan, mali yung dyan, no? We want to get it clear. Every step of the way, we make mistakes, but there's every attempt to make sure that we minimize mistakes. What the palace tried to do was send in people who would get out without anyone vetting whatever. They wanted to put people with no vetting apart with people who need to be vetted, no? There and then palang nakikita mo, that was a subversion. Because even if that's a blogger who's not vetted, you have absolutely no right to base your pagbibigay mo ng grasya dun sa kanilang pangako na makikipag-isa sila sa inyo. Dahil hindi yan ang trabaho. Even a blogger, that's not a blogger's, a blogger, a real blogger. Even if, and I can be a blogger. Pag blogger ako, walang vetting. So minsan makikita ko, ako pa rin naghahabol ng aking typos sa Facebook, sa Twitter, and everything, because we type it fast and everything there. But even bloggers need to apply certain standards. And number one dyan is accuracy pa rin. Dahil nakakamatay ang mali. You can easily spread alarm. And we've seen this during disasters, during wars, when eager beaver tapon lang and that goes viral, whether deliberate or just through carelessness, have actually caused people to turn on each other, and hurt each other. So very important. So hindi yun. They were trying to drive a wedge between, para sabihin ng mga, para pag umalma ang media, sasabihin ng taong bayan, arte-arte nyo naman ang media na yan, bakit ayaw nyo? Ayaw nyo ng kompetensya. Yun ang pinapalabas nila. It's not that, hindi naman sa ayaw ng kompetensya. It's the fact that ang premise mo sa pagpapasok niyan ay mali. Una, gusto nila papasok sa Malacanang Press Corps. The Malacanang Press Corps is an entity. Ang submission niyan is not individuals, it's actually news outfits. No? At yun din ang pagbigay ng permit sa news outfits, hindi sa individual. No? So kaya nga si Pia, eventually, hindi nila kasi Rappler, galit sila sa Rappler. And that happened to all Rappler correspondents nationwide. No? Pero deliberate. So, I think it was Sheila Coronel who said na pincer style. Pincer attack. Dito ka, and try to wear down the media. But so far naman, I think media, including the Malacanang Press Corps, has done a very good job of standing up and correcting, the more outrageous behavior of Duterte's propaganda machine.
Binanggit ni Ivy ang masungit na pagtrato ng Duterte administration sa media. Bagamat sinupil din ni Marcos ang media, sinabi ni Binibining Varona na magkaiba ang konteksto ng dalawang panahon.
What I don't want is to compare Marcos Duterte kasi ibang-iba yung panahon ni Marcos noon. You close down the media, tapos na, walang usapan. Wala naman social media. It will be very, very hard for Duterte to actually close down, a media landscape because as Myanmar has seen, even as China has seen or Russia has seen, i-close nyo man ang media yan, magsusulputan because digital media is a genie that you won't ever be able to get back into the lamp. So there's two very, very different contexts now. But what I can say, while I can say that almost all presidents have at one time or another been antagonistic towards media because probably it's, we comfort the afflicted and we afflict the comfortable, all that stuff. Hey, they call ABS-CBN Dilawan, but it was Noynoy Aquino at an ABS-CBN party who gumanon. Talagang ininsulto niya. I think ininsulto niya si Noli nung during time. Because si Noynoy Picon, panahon na yun. Makita natin, that was really the reason why he betrayed. I will say this. I will clearly say this. Noynoy Aquino betrayed advocates of free expression when he turned his back on a pledge to pass the Freedom and Information Act. And never forget is when Noynoy Aquino said, because I don't think the Filipinos can handle the truth. Oh yeah, I mean, you can probably search it there yet. So Gloria was the same, but si Noynoy Aquino naman, hindi naman ganyan kabrutal. Iba, si Duterte, even before he sat in Malacanang, Duterte is the only president who has ever justified the murder of journalists. Remember, nung nasa Davao pa lang siya nagpa-press con, sinabi niya, namura siya ng gano'n. Bakit sa tingin niyo, dahil journalist kayo, kung hindi kayo pwede mamatay. Mapaliktad. Sa tingin mo, mamamatay ka kung matino ang journalist. Parang ano yung subtext nun? If you die, that's because you're Ganun na gano'n yung kanyang niyan eh. And that was also around the same time when he was attacking a journalist because nag-spark a memory when a journalist asked him about his health status. And then he was attacking, including the wife of a journalist, except that he was attacking the wrong journalist. So ganun lang, basta galit, itatapon lang, it doesn't really matter when. That's the kind of, and Duterte has failed in fulfilling many of his promises, many of his socio-economic political promises, where Duterte has done very well, is coming through, is following up on his threats. Pag ikaw, trineten ni Duterte, ang kanyang track record for actually making good on the threat is in the 90s. Whether it's De Lima, whether it's CJ Sereno, whether it's Luman, an activist, ABS-CBN, Rappler, Inquirer, all of lahat yan inatake ni Duterte. At makikita mo yung pacing ng atake ng presidente, atake sa social media, and actual on-ground attacks. So, ganun yung, it's always that, you cannot spread lies without an infrastructure of coercion and abuse. Because this infrastructure of coercion and abuse is what will try to dissuade, to block, or to slow down people from holding you accountable to your lies. You want your lies to get a free pass. You want your lies to sail on a free highway. So you will try to block, to attack those who are able to keep up with you and then shine the light, the public spotlight on your lies. So hindi pwede. Walang network ng disinformation na hindi katumbas ng isang network ng pag-abos. Magkasama na.
Hindi maiwasang kabahan ang mga journalist sa ganitong kalagayan ng media ngayon. At sabi nga ni Ivy, pati mga estudyante namin ay tila natatakot sa papasukin nilang propesyon. Kaya tinanong niya kung ano ang ginagawa ng mga mamamahayag ngayon upang maging ligtas ang kanilang kalagayan.
Nagba-body system. Meron naman, no? Meron training, may body system. What will not make you safe, and I'm going to say this now, is carrying guns. Maraming ibang organisasyon dyan nag-offer, di ba? Basta tayo sa krami, training tayo guns kasi para mabaril natin yung kung sino man aatake sa atin. Sa maraming kaso ng journalists in the provinces who died, and marami kasi sa provinces naman talaga, marami dun may lisensya ng baril. Pag ikaw tinambangan ng 4 na tao, 2, nag-iisa ka, nagda-drive ka, pumunta. Ang tatambangan ka. I don't think that carrying guns is going to help a journalist. I know it's legal, okay? It's not a crime. But I worry also that they become beholden to the institutions that grant permits, allow them to practice in the camps, probably offer bullets. So, medyo delikado yan. Try to change your pattern, the usual. Try to be careful. There's nothing on social media that is secret, baliw ka. Kung sa tingin mo ay may conversation on social media that is secret. So never take that for granted, never forget that. You just try to be careful. Has it constrained our lives a bit? Yeah. We're people who want to, I don't drink that much, but I like to stay with friends until 2 a.m., just listening to music and all that. And yeah, for a while, and not just during COVID, you get that kind of threat, you do have to sidestep and make changes.
Inungkat ni Ivy yung pamumuno ni Binibining Varona sa tropa ng mga citizen journalist sa ilalim ng programang Bayan Mo, Ipatrol Mo sa ABS-CBN mula 2010 hanggang 2013.
Ang panahon na yun, di ba, ang Patuan Massacre, Ondoy was really where citizen journalism showed what it could do. Di ba? When you had groups of netizens on Twitter actually coordinating rescues and linking people to disaster experts, and then of course the Ampatuan massacre. No? Then, but I told Maria that, like, when she said PM, I was excited because I thought, like, we can go somewhere with this. And sabi ko, it's not enough that we use it as a platform kung baha, bagyo, ganon. Na yung kukuha ka ng kung saan wala tayo, makakakuha tayo. Which is a legitimate goal and objective. I said, we need to give back. We need to hone, use the skills, the tools of digital media to teach people so that they don't need to be dependent on traditional media, so that they get the technology and knowledge exchange that will allow them to actually, from their end, start the process of confronting, engaging government, and get the problem solved. So yun ang ginawa namin. At that point, we said, let's break the idea of media as the messiah. Let's instead be a platform where people who actually try to start looking and acting towards solutions can be given a voice. Sabi ko, baliktarin natin. So instead na ako ang simula, naging tayo na. So that was when we taught communities how to do it. And it was surprising because people actually were able to do it. To do that, you need to teach them the laws, you need to... So kita mo yan kahit ngayon sa Nuweng Carranza, may thematics sila eh. So this is how we do these disasters, this is what we do. It's not just enough to get pictures na may baha. What do you do to help prevent, harm and damage to your communities? Because typhoons, are part of our lives, but what can you do? How do you use, technology and your communication skills? How do you engage with the barangay? Help the barangay. So lahat yan, ginawa namin. And that's when I say that it's not true that just because you're a journalist, you won't be able to communicate news properly. That's absolutely untrue. Because I have seen how hungry people are to learn about how to communicate, precisely because the stakes are so high. I think deliberately subverted by this government. But I have no patience for cursing our people. I know where they're coming from, right or wrong, I believe that we can correct. Actually, the most fulfilling thing to watch is when people actually manage to help themselves out with help from others, but because they had the will to actually own their story and own their fate and not hitch their fate to some powerful individual. And that's a reflection of where we should go in our national politics. Paulit-ulit lang tayo eh. Sabi ko, the reason why we're in this mess is because we've never really learned a lesson. Puro tayo bobotante ng bobotante. But the middle class and the upper classes and the educated sectors are just as bad. Because once we get our manok, we do not want anybody to criticize our manok. When it should be the other way around. We should be harder on the people we vote for because we vote for them expecting certain standards of behavior. And even a saint will lose his or her way if after electing him, we try to pretend he or she is a saint, because nobody is. And it's up to us to always, not just journalists, but citizens. And this is the lesson, the biggest takeaway I wanted. You do not have to be a journalist to exercise the skills of communication. Digital technology is so cheap. If you just have the will, you can exercise the same way journalists do. You don't have to be a journalist to participate and engage and hold the government accountable. And we don't hold them accountable only during election season. We should hold them accountable the day after election and all the way to the next.
Sang-ayon kay Binibining Inday Espina-Verona, lahat tayo ay may tungkuling bantayan ang mga namumuno sa atin. Hindi lang mga mamamahayag. Sabi niya, hindi kailangang maging journalist upang hingin sa pamahalaan na panagutan ang mga ginagawa nito. Idaragdag ko, dapat ring panagutan pati ang hindi ginagawa na dapat gawin. Ako po si Betsy Enriquez at ito ang panayam kay Inday Espina-Verona.
Ang programang ito ay hatid sa inyo ng UPCMC Departamento ng Broadcast at Universidad ng Pilipinas, Diliman, kasama ang Philippine Studies Association at DZUP, sa pagdiriwang ng ika-100 taon ng broadcasting sa Pilipinas.